Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy. I'm your host, Sam Knickerbocker, and today we have another exciting guest on, Justin Cow. And I came across in the email, and I was like, this sounds like an exciting conversation, great life experiences, and just great history. And then I started listening to more of his interviews that he's done with other people. And I was like, I'm definitely going to love this conversation. It's going to be out of this world. So, Justin, welcome to the Fuel Your Legacy show. I'm curious, just share a little bit of your background. How did you get, I don't want to go to how you came to America yet, but what was the early childhood like? Because you're from Vietnam, right? Vietnamese over there. What was the early childhood like, and what made you want to come to America?
Absolutely. And thank you, Sam, for having me on your show. The Fuel Great Your Legacy is love it, man. And for me, for my childhood, so basically I moved to America when I was 18. Life before America was completely different because in Asia, it's more of a cutthroat environment where the type of competition is a lot harder for most people because many of us here, we may born in America, you live in America for your whole life. But for me, as someone who moved from an environment where it's cutthroat, where it's really competitive for you to stay ahead from other people, moving over here, it's just like the competition is a lot different, where everyone here, they just enjoy the comfort that the whole system is set up for them so that they can just follow through, just be a part of what I consider as living through life, just exist. So came back to my point here, life in Vietnam is rough. Imagine every day you wake up, you just have to watch out for yourself because I don't want to say anything bad about the people, but the world of business there is a lot different. Everyone are looking after themselves and nobody looking after you. And I
Is
guess
it just business, or is it like normal life as well?
I think normal life as well, especially if you are local. If you are, let's say, an American, and if you live there, things gonna be a lot different. They love like Asian like us. We love American people, Caucasian people. Yeah.
Would you say that there's not like a strong community? Like when I think of what you're saying as like cutthroat or difficult, what I think of is like an absence of community. Like you can't trust your neighbor, you can't trust the person across the street. Like you're always living in distrust rather than trust. And I think that there's elements of that in America, but I do agree that it's not as much in America. But what do you think leads to that type of energy or distrust in local town in Vietnam?
I think majority of the time it's really come down to the financial part. If you were to live in America, you know that the government would take care of you, just like the 2020 situation. Everyone gonna get a check, 1,200, the stimulus check. But in Vietnam, during that time, basically there's no support whatsoever. You have to be surviving on your own. So to answer your question, it's really come down to the financial part that make other people want to get their own piece of the pie and disregard the remaining of other people. And there's
Do they have like familiar units though, where like at least like grandparents, children, or is it even family fighting against family members to take one up on each other?
that was my situation in my family. So my father, he grew up to be the man of the family. He went through war and he able to thrive after the war. He able to thrive, build his own business. But then the rest of his siblings were trying to take advantage of him, trying to sue him for money, and some even like hire someone to hit my dad like car accident, so that they put him in like a bad health situation where they're gonna be like take advantage of him. And I do want to share with you that Vietnam, we just recently got out the war. I think after 1975, so it's really fresh, like 50 years or so.
Mhm.
So
So with that, would they have benefited by like from your dad's business if they took him out, or was it just like they didn't like that he was reaching farther than they were getting, and so crabs in a barrel, let's keep them all
so
poor?
they benefit from my dad business, but they want more than what my dad is giving them. So they put him in legal trouble. So like out of nowhere, so that they can get money out of him because he was firm that not to give them money. And like I shared with you, Vietnam just recently got out of war, maybe about 50 years, 55 years. And during that time, because right now I'm 28, so it's really just about 20 something years ago. That's when things will happen. That's why things are a lot different compared to America, where you guys don't have a lot of war within America at all. Most majority of the time it's like other country, you know. So came back to my point from the beginning. Life was cutthroat back then because of the financial distress that many people go through after the war.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So you have this internal competition. As you were growing up, when did you recognize, like, when did you become aware of all the infighting and that you were going to be an essential part of your family's success and like income, eating, just day to day life? When did you realize, hey, I've got to step up and take some responsibility here?
Hey, absolutely. And many of us, we've when we have our parents around, we still feel like, oh wow, I have my parent, I can do whatever I want. And the moment the reality hit is when either your dad or your mom pass away. That's when the reality hit. That's when I always walking around in life with a lack of, I no longer have a father, no one can protect me. And imagine a leader who got taken down, and then he has 5 children, 6 children, and then a woman who was always been a housewife. Life was completely different. That reality hit was a check for me when I see my mom crying and when people was ganging up on her, trying to take advantage of her. I'm like, I don't want to be in a situation where I feel like I'm helpless to help my mom.
And how old were you when that happened?
My dad passed away when I was 13. So, yeah.
So before that, do you feel like it was you were unaware, or were you still aware that, hey, I'm going to participate in the family economy, I have responsibilities here, I have to do stuff? Or was it kind of just, I can go play soccer or whatever, I can go play in the streets with my friends, and you're not as aware of the competition, the cutthroat nature of life until you became in that kind of man of the household position?
Yeah, so I haven't been a man. So I wasn't a man of the family during that time because I have other siblings, and I have a big sister, and she was the man of the family alongside with my mom. And I would just after because I was still a teenager, I was aware that I no longer have a dad. I was aware that my family financial situation wasn't the same as before, and I was aware that now I'm going through life with resentment that I don't have a father, and I don't have the same financial situation as before. So I went through my teenage just fighting other people, getting to bad environment, and I was participating in some gang activity during that time, and I wasn't proud of that moment, but during that time, that's when I was going through life just as by myself, going through the darkness. And eventually after 18, I starting to find out that I make my mom cry for so much. I left the home and then she had to call the cop on me, and I got into fighting with my brother too. I was a black sheep in the family. And that's when I'm like, something got to change, you know, because my friends, some of them die, some of them go to jail, some of them basically have to leave their hometown. That's when I feel like there has to be something needed to be changed.
Well, so like all those experiences are happening around you. Did any of your other friends in that group of like that, we'll say that friend group or that gang, did any of them also recognize that they needed their life to change? Or what was it that was unique about your situation that led you to change that maybe others didn't change?
I feel like God has always been revolving around my life, but I didn't recognize him. Many of my friends didn't get a chance to realizing that they need to step out. And many of them die because of that. Some dealing drugs got stabbed to death, and we got into fighting with other like gang member from other groups. And that's when I feel like whenever there's bad thing that happen, I'm always finding a way out. And up fast forward to this point, I recently got starting to accepting that God is my father, and everything that I've gone through and whatever the best situation that I got out, there was him and there was my father. So there was a really interesting story that recently happened, and I bust out crying as a man after so many years holding it on. So I was working with one of my attorney for one of my real estate business, and during that time, he was sharing with me about he went through suicidal thought when he was 20, when a girl dumped him, when his ex girlfriend dumped him. And that's also reminding me of the time where I'm almost committed suicide because I feel lost. I think it was 20 something, 21 something in America, financially distressed still, have like, really like no one support me. I just feel like I walk through life all by myself and I feel lonely, you know. And there was a voice inside of me that, oh, maybe it's better to end it. And I was almost committed to that, but then somewhat there's something that holding me back and that still keep me alive until now. But I never make a reason like why it didn't happen. Because for my lawyer, his brother, his older brother called him up before he started taking his own life. For me, I wasn't able to pay attention what was the reason until that lawyer said, hey, have you ever thought about if it was your father, the one that passed away? And then everything's starting to connect because my sister, who was the man of the family, went through the same mentally distress as well, where she almost committed suicide. Because one thing that I can share with you, the moment, so everyone that tuning in here, love your parents. No matter what they do to you, just love them. Building up that good karma for your children in the future, but love them because the moment your parent, one of them pass, there's going to be a hole inside your heart that will never be filled unless God fill that up. Recently, God helped me fill that up. But my sister went through the same thing, and what she shared was there was a voice of my father, and there's a force that pulling her back before jumping in front of a truck in Vietnam. And then all the dots start connecting. And then it was just 2 days ago. I bust out crying in his car, but I don't want to cry, but like tears just falling, you know? Like for many of like Asian dude like us, we always grew up where our parents said, stop, do not cry. If you cry, you're a little girl, you know? Get out there. If you cry, go somewhere else. Look up. My dad always teach me, hey, look up into the sky whenever you cry so it's fall back in.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was the moment I just feel like I give shout out to my heavenly Father, God, and the moment that I started switching was when my friend didn't have the chance and I did have that chance to make that realization because God was with me.
Yeah. So let's talk about the emotional aspect a little bit. I don't know that I was ever not allowed to cry as a child, but I do think that there are certain times that crying makes sense, and also times that maybe crying is just not an effective thing to be doing at the time. Like, because I feel like sometimes crying stems from an emotion of poor me or pity me or trying to avoid taking accountability and responsibility for what you did. And there's a balance between like crying due to sorrow of loss or sorrow of something that was out of your control versus crying because you don't like the outcome of you didn't get to have candy that day or something like that. And so sometimes when my kids cry, I tell them to, don't cry, go to your bedroom. We're not dealing with that right now because they're crying over things that I deem not worthy of crying over. Yeah. So I'm just curious because you had maybe another experience where you felt like, hey, I wasn't allowed to cry, and that caused, or at least it was therapeutic when you finally realized that you could cry and it was okay for a grown man to cry. That was healing and releasing for that. What's a better way, like looking back on your childhood, what could your parents have done differently, do you think, that would have still allowed you to know that it's okay to cry sometimes, but then sometimes stop crying. It's not, you don't need to cry over that.
Yeah, so I think that it's really come down to, for me, I love the way that my parents raised me because the way that they are was the way that they was being raised. And considering that for our background, many of my parents and my grandparents and many people grew up during the war. And imagine just a good example. Like when someone go into your house getting gunned around, would you want your kid to cry?
Yeah, no, you wouldn't want them to make any noise.
Yeah, so my parent was raised by my grandparent, who was went through the war, the Vietnam War, and that just somewhat carry on to me. And for me, from the early age, I was taught to do not show emotion, do not cry. And my parents they did their best to make sure that I grew up to go into life and be as strong as possible. Because in life, one thing that I have to accept the reality is we have to train them young. It's okay for a man to cry, but not in front of public. He can go into his room, shut down the door, cry in front of God, because only God can help them. My tear right now, I can cry to my woman, I can cry to my mom and dad, but none of them can help me. I have to stand my battle after the age of 18. I have to stand my ground. I have to stand my battle. So the only time I cry is when I cry with God. Cry out with God so that he can listen to me. But other than that, we were taught not to cry in front of the public because it's only show weakness. And in this world, many people, because the environment that you are raised is quite different than the environment that I was raised in. But one thing that we have to accept in this reality of the world is the world would not accept weakness. People can give you sorrow one day, but the next thing you know, they're going to pity you if you don't change.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really come down to, in the end, what do you want? Are you going to cry yourself to the destination, but knowing that crying it's going to drain your energy? Instead of crying, use that anger, use that resentment, put in the work, go to the gym, put in the work, go to the gym, make a lot of money, make impact, and use that money. Because that brings me to another thing is so many people, the misperception that I see from the dual lens of someone who live in Asia and move over here is many people said that money is root of all evil. But one thing that changed my mind was from what my mentor told me was money is not a root of all evil. It just amplifies who you are as a person. If you're a bad person, it's going to make you even worse. You're going to leave a worse legacy at who you are. And if you're a good person, money going to help amplify you. And for me right now, my legacy is I want to live a life where when someone look into my life, they're going to remember who was his dad that make him to be where he is now. Because we do a lot of charity work, Like for me, I dedicate 10% of my earning toward charity. And we build about 7 houses already, and we give them away in Vietnam to people who are in a financial distress and have children. Because I want to make sure that they have the environment where they feel safe. And then we also sponsor about 66 orphanages go to school in Vietnam as well. Because
That's
I was
amazing.
I lost my dad, So that's the
Yeah,
legacy.
I think that's such a cool thing. I've been doing this show for like 5 years now. I've never had somebody state how they want their legacy to be like that before. Like when somebody looks at Justin, they don't think about Justin. They don't think about even the impact that Justin had, but rather ask the question, who raised somebody like that? I think that that's something that when you look at like Marcus Aurelius and you think of who that man became and all the things he did, you think, well, who raised him? We see all these great people, but we think who raised him? We look at Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan and you think, man, they were the best of all time. And then somehow they get all the notoriety, but like, well, who trained that person? Right? Tim Grover trained that person. Tim Grover was the one, not that he was the one who did it for them. Obviously, he couldn't do it for them if they didn't put in the work. Nothing Tim Grover did was going to change their greatness, but he was the one that helped shape their mind, helped shape their training habits, helped shape who they became. They had the work ethic. Just like you have the effort and the ethic to be the person and to create and change your family's life and to leave the life of crime and all the other stuff that you had and change and become somebody better and be renewed in Christ and be renewed in this idea that, God is there and your dad is there looking out for you. That's all you, but also somebody trained you to be you. And I love that even in the dysfunction or the struggle, your mind is still there to honor, who was his dad. And if that's what people remember about Justin is who was his dad, that's That's a beautiful question. I've never even considered it myself. I've been doing this for a long time. So I think that's really cool. Like, who raised him to be that way? That's such a cool concept. With your other siblings, have your other siblings made it to America, or are they still in Vietnam and just prefer to stay there?
Yeah, so my family, part of my family live here already. My mom lived here, my sister lived here. But some, they feel like they like the Vietnam life better because the cost of living is significantly cheaper. For
That's an
example,
understatement.
you can live $100,000 lifestyle for only $1,000 to $2,000 in Vietnam per month. So it's
Yeah, that's
about
wild.
110 difference. So let me give you an example. You can get a personal driver 8 hours a day full time for $15 per day. 1 5. You can get a full maid that cook for you, clean your house for about $15 a day. So if you factor out the cost, that's significantly cheap. And then the cost of living in Vietnam is extremely cheap as well.
So are they making money still? Like, there's a lot of VAs, a lot of people doing virtual income. How are they making their money in Vietnam now? Or is the economy in Vietnam equivalent? Like, if I lived in Vietnam, worked in Vietnam, made food and everything there, am I still making low wages just like the people I'm paying? Or am I making money in another country and translating that into Vietnam currency?
That is the beautiful thing about the internet, where it helps you make American dollars and spend it like a king in Asia. And for me right now, I am an Amazon seller. I build and sell my own brand on Amazon. And there's a proceed that came afterward. I used that money to live 6 months here and 6 months in Vietnam, but knowing that I would save a significant portion of my lifestyle during that duration of 6 months.
And do you still do that, or are you primarily here in America now?
I still do that because I love Vietnam. I love to traveling. And right now, my work is not bound to a fixed location because I partner with Amazon, where they do most of the legwork from fulfillment. That's what they call it, Amazon FBA or Prime shipping. Amazon do most of the legwork from fulfilling, storage, shipping, customer service. And all I gotta do is just make sure that I have a good product and good value to the customer, and make sure that my manufacturer in China ship everything to the US, to Amazon warehouse on time. And all I gotta do is just digital marketing, building a brand, run Amazon advertising, and make sure we give the customer the best experience, and ask them to leave a reviews, because the more reviews you have, the more reputation that you build with Amazon. And as for you, as someone who shop on Amazon, you know that you're going to look at the review first before you start making a decision, right?
So, how is all the tariffs and stuff that Trump is imposing on these different countries, how is that impacting your business, your sector, and the prices that you're seeing change?
Absolutely. So regarding to the tariff tax, here's a few things that I want to make sure that we understand is that there's three type of people that would get affected: the front end, the back end. The front end is gonna be small business and large corporation. The bigger you are, the more it's gonna affect you. But for us small businesses, it doesn't affect us as much as big corporation. So that's number one. Number two, let's talk about the back end people, which is the consumer, the end consumer. Imagine right now, let's say you and me, we are purchasing from the same manufacturers in China, and we are the only two selling that product in the Amazon market. And both of us now would have to pay more for the products, right? We have to
Mm-hmm.
mutually raising the price up. So who's gonna end up paying it? The end consumer.
Right.
So for us, it's not a lot. It doesn't affect us a lot, but it's gonna affect the end consumer, because the whole market, you and me, we're gonna raise the price up altogether, because that's how much we're gonna get from the manufacturer in China.
Why would you mentioned that big business gets hit harder than small businesses? Why would a bigger business get hit harder? Obviously, more volume means a higher amount of money going there, but wouldn't it stay the same percentage? And wouldn't they have even more bargaining power than a small business, so they'd be able to negotiate better prices?
Yeah. So one thing you cannot negotiate is the tariff. The tariff is one general thing that you cannot negotiate. So when you import, so let's say you have $1 million worth of goods, right? When you import it to America, the tariff gonna be fixed. You cannot, even big corporation cannot change that.
Well, they're not going to be able to change the tariff, but wouldn't they be able to still keep their prices? Like, if you read the book Made in America,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Made in America by Sam Walton, he had he had what are called loss leaders, basically price the toothpaste below what the market was actually doing, maybe even lose a few cents on the toothpaste. But he knew that if he got people into his store, then he was going to ultimately have customers they could price everything else either the same or a little bit more, and he was going to beat out the rest of the market. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't a bigger corporation be able to do the same thing, a bigger supplier, be able to say, look, yeah, Justin is there, this other person's there doing this thing, but we have something that is similar to what they're offering, and we're going to price it just like $1 or $2 lower. Even though they may be taking less of a profit, they would still move more units, taking less of a profit than you, who can't sell as many units.
No, I agree with you in that part. And that's why for big corporation, they would get impacted as well. But one thing they have is they have investor money. They have private equity money that they can willing to go low as much as possible, which is the loss leader concept, because I'm familiar with that concept. Because when I was building my first multi-million-dollar company, which just did about $4 million a year, we have a loss leader on Amazon, where every sale it was $1 negative, but we capture the customer information, bring them to Shopify, and upsell them on the rest. So we customer acquisition from the front end, and then we make money on the back end. So I'm pretty familiar with that loss leader concept. And for big corporation, they would have the money. So that's why where I share with you, there's going to be 3 types of people that get affected the most. And big corporations, small businesses like us, but in the end, it's going to be still like the end consumer. And one thing though is the big corporation would have more leverage against small businesses like us. They would have more leverage to kick us out. And that's going to clean slate the rest of, let's say, not the rest, but like smaller guy who don't have that connection. They would have the reset. That's what we call the reset. The weak guy going to have to go out. And the one that stay during that time going to go up. Because for me, I sell on Amazon during the first time that Trump introduced a tariff tax. And for me, I don't hate him at all, because I know that he had to do what he got to do as a president to have more leverage against other country. Because if not, he's going to get jumped by other country. So he has to do that.
Well, and that's something that you mentioned earlier, just as far as like bringing different parts of our conversation back. Mm-hmm. You mentioned that because it's cutthroat, because it's so high competitive nature in Asia versus in America, there's more cutthroat nature of it. When you think about that as a whole, where do you feel like America is still the leader in? There's so much propaganda. I never know what to believe, frankly. You can look at reports, but it's like, oh, China's either bankrupt or it's like crushing us. Like, which one is it? Who knows? America's either bankrupt or it's crushing it. Who knows? So there's a lot of propaganda there. Every country does it to its own people. I'm not saying it's good or bad. It just happens about what is true. But unless you go travel to these other places and actually you're doing multinational businesses, you may not have a comprehension of that. That's where I'm at. So from your perspective, who you are doing business in these different areas, what economy do you feel like really is leading right now in the world?
You mean like which country are leading in the world right now?
Yeah. Like, do you feel like China's ahead of America? Do you feel like, no, if America stopped, like, do you feel like the tariffs are even going to work? Like, okay, is America so dependent on China that China's not going anywhere and we're not leaving China?
So before I go to answer that question, I do want to make it known that I'm not a strong economist background. But one thing that I know is whatever go ups will go down. But then wherever the down season, things are going to go back up. And America has been experiencing the down low for a while. Meanwhile, China has been up to their season for like up high for a while. But in life, one of the things about Asia philosophy is the feng shui and yin and yang. When there is up, there's going to be down. Whatever go up would have to go down, just like water. Mm-hmm. Up tide, low tide. A country that going to go up there like this, they would have to fall down a little bit, and then there's going to be someone that's going to build it back up again. And same with China. So to answer your question right now, it's really a fluctuation between the both country. I'm not like a strong, powerful economist or a leader. I can give you an answer, but I just know for sure that look at the life of the people who live in that country. If their life getting better, that means the whole country as a whole is growing. And if everyone in that country as a whole are going down, and we cannot zoom in like a month, 2 month, a year, okay? You have to zoom a spectrum of 4 to 8 years to really see from where they are now and where they are in the next 10 years and way before. So let's say, for example, like 10, 20 years ago, an average American income can buy a house. But right now, Gen Z is struggling. And that duration for the past has showcased us we are experiencing somewhat down low, but there's going to be back up. There's nothing would hold this dragon, the American eagle, to stay low. The eagle have to fly up. And that's what I love about America. There's going to be great talent people. There's going to be the great superhero that will show up and bring the eagle back up to the sky. And whatever the dragons that flying up, there's going to be times have to rest. Just like battery, you know?
Right. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Something you said in one of the interviews that I was listening to, you were talking about kind of how you learned how to do math and then how you were teaching other people who maybe didn't learn how to do math. And I feel like this is something that's, I wonder how many other areas of life you've learned something in a different culture that just everybody there knows it. Everybody's like, it looks competitive, but it's not really competitive because everybody knows it. But then you enter that skill into a different marketplace where nobody knows it, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's giving somebody an edge. So what specifically around math? What was like the trick that you were doing or that you learned that you then were coming teaching other people?
Yeah, so it's really not about specific trick, but the way that math and science and almost of every other subject was taught in Asia was how can we shortcut? How can we get the fastest result in the least possible amount of time? So when I go here, so I was a C student in Asia, but when I came to America, attend college, I feel like I become an A student, which is true. I got 4.0 plus. And the difference was, what I see the difference was in America, education, they like to teach you through the in and out of the like each component, how you can get from point A to point 10, point A to all the way to point D, step by step. But in Asia, we're going to teach you how to get from point A to point D in 2 steps only. So we're skipping step. And why? Because
is that positive or negative in the grand scheme of thing? Like, does it help America to have a very process oriented trained populace versus a shortcut trained populace? Like, what's the pros and cons of each mindset?
Yeah, so everything in life, there's no right, no wrong. That's one of my philosophy in life is there's no right and no wrong. And it's really come down to the perspective and the position that the person that are applying it toward. Let's say, for example, in America right now, right? If you want more people who are, for a country, for us to grow exponentially, things got to get done quick and fast. That's how a country is starting to evolve faster and faster. And just like in Singapore, when they changed I forgot the name of the leader, but he transformed the whole country within a short amount of time. Imagine if he had to go through the step by step and do it by the book. It's going to be extremely hard for him to turn his country around in a shorter amount of time. And during that time, his country needed a lot of changes. So the shortcut have to be implemented. Before a country, for example, that you got enjoying it, life is good, it's going to take, you just enjoy it. You don't have that urge. You don't have that why, that hunger. And that's bring to like shortcut your way to success. And eventually.
Do you feel like some of the shortcuts though, in skipping steps, they're skipping essential elements of learning, or are they only shortcutting the things that they didn't need to know anyways? Like I can understand in math, like if you get the right answer and you can consistently get the right answer, who cares how you got it? That's how I was raised. So like whatever. But there's other areas of life like that mindset. Sometimes shortcutting isn't like sometimes the long way around. But even taking your childhood, for example, when you look at your whole childhood, there's certainly things that you wish you didn't experience, that you didn't go through. You wish your dad was still here. You wish all of that, right? There's all these things that would have been nice if it wasn't that way. But then when you look back and you say, look, I'm 28, I've had all these experiences. And had that not happened when I was 13, had I not joined the gang, had I not had this realization that my mom was crying, had I not experienced all these pain, I may not have been who I am today. So there's certain things that were really valuable experiences, even though, yeah, it would have been nice to shortcut them and have an American life. But then the downside to an American life is maybe you're not as hungry. Maybe you're not as driven as you were because you experienced the long way. Does that make sense? So like, I wonder what the value of us, because I think America tries to shortcut success more than Asian cultures. In my mind, Asian cultures are willing to go put in the work to get the success, where American culture is like, let's just shortcut it. Let's just have the government or somebody bail us out. And we don't actually learn success. So that's what I'm trying to understand. Like, what's the balance here? I know there's not a right and wrong, but I'm trying to understand where could I implement the strategies of what you learned in Asia into my family with my children. So I got 3 kids. And I want to know, where could I implement that into my family, the Asian culture mindset, instead of being raised with an American mindset where we're just, it'll get here eventually. Yeah. Life's not that bad, you know?
Yeah. So it's a very great and compact question that you put out there. So I would love to go one by one. So number one, all of the things in my life that I experienced, there was a part in my life when before I became a man, I wish that I could have a better life. And until I became a man, until I have the responsibility, until I get the chance to reflect, I'm glad that I went through it. And I know it's a part of the process. And there was a segment when one of the disciples that God make him walk through the water to him. And the disciples say, God, why you make me go through this just to get to you? And God said, because that's a training. To show that you're genuine, believe in me, but knowing that I'm always here. And just lead on. So that brings me to the next step was the shortcut. The shortcut is very simple. The Bible is a shortcut. It breaks down the walk of a human life. It breaks down for you when an owner gives you 5 talents, you want to double it. You don't want to keep the talent yourself. And came back to the shortcut. There's 2 types. Number 1 is the technical shortcut. And the number 2 is about who can be that shortcut for you, which is the mentor, your life mentor. Let's say, for example, right now, right, who do you feel like you are looked up to? Who do you feel like your kids can become? And then reach out to that person and ask them, hey, how did your life went through? What are the things that help you get there? And how can we work together to give this knowledge to my kid, to give not just my kid, but other people? Can you be their mentor? That's exactly what your show is about. You extract the great mind from other people. So one day your children can listen to this. And one of the things I can share with you is, for me, I have my Bible book with me all the time. Ever since, so I was born as a Jesus follower, but I recently starting to make a connection with him because I was in another down low environment where I get closer to him, just like how he making me walk through the rough water. So to answer your question, how can we get shortcut? Is to have the mentor. Get a mentor in your life, spiritually, physically, mentally, financially. And most importantly is right now in this technology, everyone trying to be your teacher, but not everyone have the experience to be your teacher. One good teacher can change your life, so does the bad one. So does they have moral values? Do they walk the walk that they put in their lips? And do they have what you want? There's many drug dealers that have a good life, but do they have a moral compass? Right? So many people want to be your teacher, but focus on the OG, the book, the 2,000 years old Bible, and go to church. For me, I go to church daily now. In fact, I've been going to church for the past 3 months consistently, and I'm amazed at it too. Because I was never a guy that was born to go to church. I was like the street guy, basically. But God pulled me in. God made me walk through the rough water, and now every time I go to church, I am at peace. So what you can do with your children is how can you build a foundation for them? One thing that you don't want to shortcut is the foundation. What is the foundation here? How to walk, how to run, how to build moral values. Because the moral values and a strong family connection would help them walk through life with their chest up, with their hand, with the head humble, bow down, learning from other people.
What's like one of the best, or I don't know best, but like what are some of the top three moral values that you feel like you learned from both your dad and then also from your mom? Like what values did you learn from your dad? What values did you learn from your mom?
Yeah, I feel like my dad and mom, they are both raised as Catholic, and many of their value came down from the Bible. And I'm not here to force religion to anyone, but this is what
Force it, Justin. Just force it. Jam it down their throat. I'm just teasing.
Yeah.
I know what you mean, but be proud of it. You don't need to excuse yourself, because I think people need to find something outside of themselves. So don't excuse yourself. Just profess your faith. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. But for me, my dad and my mom is whatever you do, just make sure that you are not feel ashamed the moment you show up in front of God, because He gonna be there for you. So let's say, for example, before you're about to, let's say, beat your meat off, right? Just know that God is watching you. My Father is watching me. And whatever you do, just make sure that God will be there for you. And will you make Him proud? Will you make your parent proud? Number two is treat people the way that you want to be treated. Because in life, what I feel like in America is we have that entitlement of you guys should treat me the best possible. But have you treat them the way that you want to be treated? Have you put the input before you withdraw? That's another thing that I can see, because when I first got here, I was in a dating game. I'm out of it already. But many women that was raised in this culture, not in the past, okay, but this culture. I'm not saying that majority of them, but a quite a bit of people that I met, they are always about, hey, you gotta do this and that for me. But then why I have to do it? Have you invest into me? But it's really come back and forth as well, okay? Let's say for a guy there's not a resourceful man, then you cannot have anything to deposit to the girl. But for a guy like us, like you and me, we have resourceful, we have businesses. With faith, we have a spiritual connection, we have the physique, we have the mindset and the discipline. We are resourceful men. So for me as a resourceful man walking around, what are the things that people can deposit to me that I would deposit to them? But before we get there, make sure we treat other people with respect, build ourselves up before we go out there and network and build relationship, friendship, and material. Because if I have no story, probably would not have this conversation.
Well, the cool thing is, just to address that, and then I want to go back a little bit and address a lot of what you said. Mm-hmm. Everybody has a story. This is one thing. This is one reason why I started the Fuel Your Legacy show. In fact, if you're listening and you want to be a guest on the Fuel Your Legacy show, go to thefuelyourlegacyshow.com and apply. Like, I think everybody has a story. Everybody has a life. I'm the seventh of 11 children. And what was fascinating about being the seventh of 11 children is we all grew up in the same house. We had the same parents. My parents are still married to this day. They love each other. We all love each other. Anyways, it's great. But what's fascinating is we were all through similar events in our lives. We all lived through our van catching on fire in front of the Walmart parking lot. We all lived through certain things. And we all came out with different perspectives, different identities that we were going to choose out of those experiences. We all came out differently. And so one of the things, and one of the reasons I have this podcast is I want to find out what makes somebody tick. How do they believe and why do they believe what they believe? Because even if you had a perfect pillow life, just like an average, normal, everyday American, no trauma, no hardship, nothing, I would still want to know, like, what is going on in Justin's life that created that? And how did he determine, if he had no trauma and no hardship, how did he determine who he wanted to be in life? I want to know, like, how did you pick your morals? How did you pick your values at that point? And so there's always going to be a level of that. One thing that you said really stuck out to me about the parable of the talents. I think that gets an overlooked. I'm gonna make an effort to teach that to my children and teach that to my team. I appreciate you bringing it up, because it's so true that so often we're not thinking in, okay, I got given this, how can I double it? I got given this advice, just like you're giving me information right now, and I'm thinking, how can I double this and have this go to my children? How can I not just have what Justin's sharing with me go to myself, but how does it go to the next stage, the next person? And with the talents, you're right. You don't want to just get that information and hold it. You want to get that and double it. If I'm going to give somebody a business opportunity, are they just going to take that and hold it themselves, or going to take it and double it? Like, is that a core value that I want my team or my business to be operating on, that whatever we receive, we give back double. Whatever we receive, we give back double. Whatever we receive, we give back double. I'm excited to implement that mentality and that way of being, with the consciousness of that it's based in a foundational truth from the Bible, and that we don't need to overlook it. It is it. Let's just, whatever we receive, give back double. Whatever we receive, give back double. So I love that that thing. And then also talk a little bit more about, I don't know if you're in a relationship or if you're married, single, I know nothing about that, but talk about that in a relationship. You mentioned about being a resourceful man. What would you hope for in a spouse? And sometimes we have these gender roles in America and other places that men should be the providers, men should be the resourceful man. But what would you hope or expect out of a resourceful woman?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. And that has really come back to, so there's a midpoint between what you just shared about doubling the talents and showing your team that it's possible and make them double. And also about the woman that you want to lead, right? So it's really come down to leading by example. You have to double your talent first and do it in a way that people can see. And when your team see you double the talents, when your team seeing you that you're grinding through the night and be able to achieve the result, they're going to feel inspired to walk that walk. Just like how Jesus set an example, lead by the example. No matter how much he loved the world and loved other people, people still decided to hang him up. He could have the right to run away, but he decided to walk that walk. And life going to be tough, and you would have to walk that walk. Because when you walk that walk, that's when you will level up. And that's what help the woman that you see you as a resourceful man. And she wants to be with you. And give me 1 second. I have to turn up the...
You're good.
Yes, sir, for that. It's my alarm working out. So I set my workout alarm every 4 p.m.
Do 10 push-ups.
Yeah. Yeah, so came back to what you shared was, so for the woman's, an ideal woman for me is, before I get to choose a woman, I have to be a resourceful man, because I'm not going to look at, when I was younger, I look at the woman as their flesh, using my lust. But now I don't look at a woman as just using her body anymore. I'm looking at her as someone that I want to build with. And for me to find high value woman, I have to be a high value man. I have to walk the walk, because that's how you attract. So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just want to dig deep on this a little bit, because I my dating experience is unlike most people I know. As far as like, I knew exactly what I was. I don't know that I knew exactly what I was looking for, frankly, but I knew one thing that I was looking for. The biggest thing I was looking for in a woman. My wife asked me this, I think on our first date, like, what are you looking for in a woman? And I was like, honestly, I'm looking for somebody who's willing to accept me and let me grow. Because I was not content with who I was, but I knew that growth was going to happen over time. And I didn't want somebody to marry me for who I was that day, because my whole game plan in life is to change and become somebody new. And so if somebody's marrying me for who I am today, they're going to be awfully disappointed in 3 months from now. And then in 6 years from now, they're not even going to know me, because they fell in love with who I was rather than who I was going to become. And so for me, it was really important that I found a spouse who was excited for me to become somebody new, and also was patient with me becoming that, because I'm not perfect by any stretch of anybody's imagination. And it's a lot of work to become something. And I screw up all the time. I fail all the time. And so that's something I was looking for. When we're talking about this high value man, I had somebody ask me one time, like, man, how do I find somebody like you? And it maybe wasn't the most tactful way of saying it, but I said, look, somebody like me would never marry somebody like you. And she was taken aback a little bit, like, well, why? What's wrong with me? I was like, honestly, there's nothing wrong with you necessarily, but somebody like me who values independence, who values creation, who values these things, is not going to marry somebody who is codependent, who needs them around, because that means that they're not chasing their personal development either. And so there's there's high value man. To find a high value woman, you wouldn't want a woman who's looking at a high value man for the sake of their value, but rather for the sake of who they are and who they became in the process of becoming a high value man. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And I feel like a lot of women, well, I'm just curious. I've been out of the dating scene for a long time, 9 years. I don't know if you're still in it, but when you're looking for a relationship, what are some of the things to look for to determine, hey, is this person just like me because I'm a resourceful person and they just kind of want to latch on to something that's resourceful, rather than, hey, they're also resourceful. They respect that I'm resourceful and they want me to keep growing my resources, not so that they can leech off of them, but because they value the identity of somebody who's resourceful.
Yeah. So for me, I've been out the dating game for a while, so I'm in a relationship, and
Awesome.
for me, I value loyalty, and I like people around me to be loyal, and for me to ask that, I have to be loyal first. And just like came back to what you asked me, what my parent teach me was to lead by example, to give before you receive, and be what you want other to be for you. So for me, when I looking at a woman, right? So you were asking, so do you prefer a woman who love you for the process of who you becoming, and the person that love you for the benefit that you can provide to them? And this really come back down to, you cannot blame a woman, because that's what a woman want. There's a few type of women out there, and everyone have their own personal need, and we all need to respect that. And that's our job to curate. It's our job not to put us in the environment where, hey, I flirt with you and you should allow me to use you. So we have to, as a man like us, we build the world that the children, the woman, they can benefit from. And that's the number one thing we got to provide. So it really come back down to how to choose the right woman. Is about, what do you want in your life? What are an ideal woman look like for you based on the Bible? Because the Bible's really sharing with you about what does ideal woman look like. And all you gotta do is find them in the right place. You cannot find a good woman, let's say a Jesus woman lover who do a lot of like act of kindness in, let's say, in a club where she go to club 5 days out of the 7 days. She drink every day, do drug every day. You cannot find a good woman in a club where that is her activity. We have to respect that. That is her life. She went through the trauma in her life that where she have to find escape for her. So I respect that, and I don't judge her. But I just know that I am in control, not to get close to her, that I can show, like I can attract her into me. I'm going to find the right place where I need it to be. And there's going to be time when you cut slacking. Let's say you're going to be in the wrong place, wrong time, but that is, you have to learn through that experience and you have to grow through it. So one thing that I want to share is, even with you, when you share with your kid as well, is you have to touch the hot pan before you know that it's hot. The people that went through and become wiser, calmer, they went through a lot. They went and touched the hot pan to know that it's hot. So,
yeah, it's an interesting concept. I've had this conversation many times with my wife about how you build equanimity. Like, how do you build calmness and composure under high stress environments? What does that look like, and how do you acquire that? Because it's something that I feel like I've been blessed with. I put that in air quotes because, like, you build that through a lot of trauma. You build that through a lot of hardship, and so those hardships are blessings in my mind. And so it's like you build equanimity through hardship. And if somebody doesn't have enough hardship in their life, will they build the same level of equanimity, or will they be thrown off by hardship? And one of the things, even why I moved to Arizona, we're talking about where I live right now. I used to live in Utah, and one of the reasons why I moved, just in general, not just specifically to Arizona, but one of the reasons that I moved in general is because my son at the time, he was having like OCD, compulsive disorder, like couldn't go to sleep unless his blanket was perfect, and he didn't handle change at all. And for me, I was like, I don't think that's a good way of being. I don't think you should be repulsed by change or thrown off by change or lose your cool over change. I think that change should be okay. And then my wife, she through COVID was struggling. Like, if this is all going to go downhill, then we should just not be here. We should end our lives and it'd be over. Like, if life is going to be so terrible. And for me, I think of life as kind of running on ice that's cracking as you're hitting it. Like, as you're running, the ice is going to crack. So if you stand on thin ice, you're going to sink. But if you run across thin ice, it will support you just long enough to take the next step. And as long as you're moving faster than the ice is cracking underneath you, then it's all good. And you don't even recognize it's cracking behind you. But if you sit still too long, then you're going to sink. And so one of the reasons I moved to Arizona or moved out of Utah was to give them change and cause them to be in a situation where the change was happening faster around them, so that they were forced to change with it. And they didn't like it for the first year. They really didn't like that they were having to disrupt their patterns, establish new friendships, all this stuff. But it's like, that's how you grow, and you get comfortable with nothing that's going to change in the world is going to throw me off my game. I can be purposeful and become who I want to become regardless. So I'm curious how that plays into kind of your mentality as well.
Yeah, so it's a beautiful things that you do for your kids, and I do give you recognition on it, because that really come back down to my own story. And there's two stories that I want to share. The first story was, before I start that story, I'm going to ask, you may have heard it before, but when a seed doesn't grow, would you blame that seed or would you blame the environment?
I've never heard that analogy, but I do like it.
What would you blame?
Well, I mean, I don't know that I would blame anybody, because blame is useless emotion, but it definitely, the seed didn't have a choice where it was planted most of the time. So the person who planted it is the one who maybe didn't nurture the ground. Now, whether that's right or wrong, I'm like you. I don't think of right and wrong. I just think, oh, that one didn't work. Try a different thing next time.
Yep. And one thing is that there's many components that help the seed grow. So for us in our life, if we were stuck in a certain situation where we don't feel like there's a way out, we have to reverse engineer and lay out the option of what was not working in my favor. Because it was, for me, my story was, I grew up in the environment in Vietnam after my dad passed away. I was in an environment where people around me was doing drugs. People around me was doing gang-related activity, where I was become that environment until I starting to change the scene, which is the soil. When I moved to America with my family, things are quite a little bit different. I have to refresh everything, restart the button. My life changed, my group of circle changed, and I was put in the right environment where everyone around me was school, dream, vision. And that's what I love about America. If you were to go to college, if you were to go to university, where you see a lot of immigrants who don't have a good life before, that are hungry. They came here for a second chance. And that's why when a seed doesn't grow, it could be an environment. But on the flip side, when a seed would put in a new environment, if there's a core inside of it doesn't want to grow, it won't grow. So it's a black and white feng shui. In black there's white, and in white there's black, yin yang. So that leads me to another story, which is exactly what the story that you were sharing, where you're moving your kids around. So in Asia, we have a story where there's a mom. She gave birth to her son, right? And then during that time, her family was next to a place where like they chop animal and sell it. I don't know what's the term for it. But the mom starting to move around because she knew that when her kid grew up in that environment, he could grow up and have the seed, the potential seed of becoming the person that...
Butcher.
The
butcher. It's called
butcher.
a butcher.
Absolutely. So she moved her whole family somewhere else. Even though she was pinching pennies to survive, she still had to move for the kids. They move around a couple of times from live next to a group of butcher to live next to a group of people that are doing drugs. And they eventually settle in a place where nearby the school, nearby the church, where she can hear prayer next to her home when a few walk next to the school. and her kids grew up, become very well educated, very well faith oriented, and she now reaping the fruit of the action that she did from the beginning. Because you don't just give your kid 18 years of life and responsibility after they grew up, even though you denied a responsibility, but somewhat in your heart, they are still your child. And the rest of, so human life, 60 years. After 18 years, you still have to be responsible for them for the rest, right? Unless you don't want to, but I know in your heart, they are still your baby. So came back to your
Yeah.
story, you do the right thing. Move them around because they are still young. They can still adapt to the environment. Even older people, they can still do it too, but what inside of them have to burn? What inside of them have to burn as much as possible? The hunger, the why. You have to go through hardship. Even to get to heaven require death. What can you do to get to greatness without sacrifice?
Yeah, I love that. Even to get to heaven.
Sorry that I share a lot.
No. Don't be sorry at all. I love this. I'm taking notes because I love learning. I think it's so funny. My parents. So when I became a parent, before I became a parent, I had all these opinions about how my mom and dad didn't do it right, and I should have right. And then I became a parent, and I was like, oh wow, I'm so grateful that my mom and dad did as good as they could. But one of the things that they did, I asked them. I said, what was your goal when we were being raised and born? What was your objective? And they said that by the time we were 14 years old, they wanted us to know a skill and be able to function in society and be able to provide for ourselves if we needed to. So like that was their goal, was that by the age of 14. But I mentioned earlier, I'm the seventh of 11 kids. So not only did they decide that before they had their first kid, but they also maintained that mentality through pretty much all 11 kids, to where we all, by the time we were 14, could provide income and were basically self-sustaining if we needed to be. And so when you think about that long-term vision and long-term application, there was a lot of crap along the way that produced that. But also, you lost your dad at 13. So think of like, if the whole objective was from when you were born to 13 for you to replace your dad, income, responsibility, like life would be a lot harder. You'd lose a little bit of like the innocence of childhood because you had to grow up a certain speed so that by the time you were 13, you were ready to step into your dad's shoes. And that's like, it's a different perspective. And then to do that for 11 children, that's some serious commitment and some seeing, okay, I'm going to plant this seed. And over time, we're going to get the environment nailed down to where we want it to be. And I just love and respect my parents so much for providing that environment for me to grow in, for me to be nurtured, for me to find mentors. They did. They found mentors for us. A lot of the things that you're mentioning in here, I got to live through in my own childhood. My parents did incredible in that way. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't love, but also I'm really grateful at this point that they created me to who I am today. And so that's amazing. I'm curious, you, in one of the episodes I listened to, or one of the things I was listening to about you, you mentioned a series of businesses, like your first few businesses that you tried. You eventually found the business you're doing right now and you're very successful in, but talk about those failures along the way and the trial and error, the times that you trusted somebody, asked, maybe paid for coaching and mentorship that turned out not to be helpful. Like you mentioned here, there's lots of teachers, and a bad teacher can still move you in a bad direction, so you got to be careful who you listen to. Talk a little bit about that aspect of the different jobs you've had, when you started working, and how did you ultimately get to where you are today?
Yeah, I think that would be great. First of all, I do want to shout out to your parents because they are your blessing. You are blessed. The life that many people like us don't have. So we respect you. We respect your parents, and we get jealous of you because you actually have a really great life, brother. And whatever that your parent put you through, they are very, very smart. And that's the same thing that my dad was trying to put us through as well. But God wanted him to be in a better place. That's why God bring him with God up there. But your parent did a great job because they are your mentor. And for me, when I go through businesses, I fail a lot because I don't have a mentor. My dad wasn't there for me. Not because he wasn't there physically, but I know that he always there spiritually for me through every turbulence in my life. But I went through a lot more than other people. And that's why I wanted to create a mentorship to where I can be other people's mentor, where I can share with them about my life mistake, the things that I did to get to where I am now, and the things that I did to help them to not only fix their mind, because you have to fix your mind before you can start fix your income. That was something that I didn't do. That's why I failed so many times. I was thinking that I can be self-made. That was the lie that was fed to us, that you can be self-made. No, you are God-made and you are your mentor-made. You are the product of your parents. You are the product of the right people surrounded by you. And during that time where I failed various businesses because I was egotistical, I was think that I can be self-made, and I never understand the value of mentorship because life got cut short. I don't have a mentor when I starting to develop me from a young kid into a man, and that's why I failed a lot until I starting to invest into myself. I starting to read the first book was The Atomic Habit to really understand about my mind. That was a book that was recommended by a friend who eventually became a mentor. You know, and that helped me to rewire my mental clarity, rewire my software inside of my mind, and that helped me to now take the next step into invest further into myself because I spent money for that books. I know that's the money, if you were to spend it on the right knowledge, the right people, is so powerful. And that's when I starting to invest furthermore into myself, getting myself into a mentorship. And that's when everything starts swift, like changing to a new direction. Now I start from empty everything in my bank account to start a business to where I become more smarter, where I'm using the bank money, using the OPM method, other people money, to start my business with the guidance of my mentor, to be able to find my first products on Amazon. Because in the past I did drop shipping. It was really bad because I feel like I wasn't doing the right things. I over promising and I under delivery for people. And I don't want to be a bad karma. I was doing a lot of trading like crypto, but then the moment I put money in the market, I no longer in control of that market. I also started doing some Airbnb and real estate, but a lot of them have a lot of overhead costs. And I failed. I lost money. That's when I started to reverse engineer and have a mentor help me. Hey, Justin, whatever you do in life, make sure you write it down, the pros and cons, and you got to talk to people who've been through that to get their aspect, their thought, their perspective on it. That's bring me to Amazon, private label, which is building your own brand. Just like the fuel your legacy. Your legacy is a brand. So I'm building my own brand on Amazon. And why Amazon instead of others, Shopify or drop shipping? Because Amazon is my mentor. Jeff Bezos is my mentor. They set up the foundation already, just like your parents set up your foundation. Jeff Bezos set up a foundation of Amazon where he already have 300 million customers actively shop on Amazon, have their payment information safe. That all you gotta do is just have the right products, the right offer, and the right listing images, and letting the reassurance for people that it's safe to buy from you. Jeff Bezos have been that mentor to build the foundation, the customer base, the trust, so that I myself, as an immigrant who didn't know a single word of English before, and have to start. I still have a struggle speaking English from time to time. I was scared of talking to people. So Jeff Bezos has helped us to be able to tap in, to be able to make the wealth, the money that I have now. I don't consider myself as successful because I like to keep myself humble, so I continue to build forward. But I did. So this is one of my store that. So I sold the $4 million business and I exit that business, and now I'm just repeating the same game. So this one right here, this store doing about $923,000 just the last 12 months, and we profit about 35% on this one. And based on Jeff Bezos Foundation as he built, now I'm able to nourish and flourish just like you. Right now, you are the product of your parent foundation, and now you're flourishing. This is another store, $381,000 in the last 12 months. And as I'm talking to you, this store has done about $845 in sales. As I'm just sitting from home talking to you and just do some work in the computer. I don't have to stuck in traffic. I don't have to listen to no boss. I don't have to, when I get sick, I'm not able to get paid, or I'm being my own control. I'm being my own boss. So that's why I want to share with you is having a mentor is a cheat code for you, for your children, and for anything that you want to do in life.
So with the Amazon stores, 'cause first of all, I love everything you said, and I love that you view Amazon as a mentor and as something that you're learning from and actively using. There's a lot of things in life that there's really no need to reinvent the wheel. The wheel has already been created by people, not necessarily smarter, although in a lot of cases they are, but definitely they've just already done the work. So even if they were smarter or not, it doesn't matter. Why go try and recreate something that's clearly working? Even if you think, oh, well, this could benefit if we improved it, then send an improvement suggestion. Don't try and change the system. Try and use the system, understand the system, and then once you understood it, if there's a small change that you would make, then suggest that change, but don't try and go recreate it and create competition. Think more about collaboration. And I love that that's what you've done with Amazon. It's like, how can I collaborate? How can I be a business partner with Jeff Bezos? Oh, he actually has a website and a way to do that. He's inviting business partnership. He wants people to be business partners of his on Amazon. That's one of his business models. Probably a main business model of his is business partnership. He wants you to start a business there. So when you think about that, there's been, unfortunately, a lot of Amazon businesses or people who have created businesses. I'm sure that because you're successful in the industry, you know when somebody's a hack and when somebody's just like selling the fake stuff and the real stuff. So what would you say differentiates your success from some of the people who have said, oh yeah, we're going to do Amazon stores and Amazon shipping and stuff, charge you $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 to set it up, and then there's no results? Like, what's the thing that's key difference between what you're doing and what they typically were doing?
I see. Yeah, so for me, it's always about the shortcut. Just like I shared with you from the beginning point. We was taught to how can we shortcut. And how to shortcut, you have to be able to stand on the giant's shoulder. That is one of the war strategy. Is when you stand on the giant's shoulder, you would get a chance to get crushed is a lot smaller.
Sorry, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still
Yeah. Okay, I'm just taking notes. So, stand on the shortcut. Somebody's taller, but what is it that you're doing that's unique? And if somebody else were wanting to get into the Amazon business game like you are, what were some of the things that didn't work, and what eventually did work?
Yeah.
For you to be successful?
Absolutely. So it came down to number one, you need to find the right mentor who already know what the top of the success mountain for Amazon looks like. And he have to show you that result so that you can walk with him. Because selling on Amazon is a high roller play. Where in the beginning it's gonna take it's only take about you 3,000 to 5,000 to start. Because for us, the strategy that we use that my mentor taught me was to validate the proof of concept first before you start going all in. For the reality of many sellers out there that fail because they go all in with few $1,000 unit to start their first batch of product. For me, we test about 3 products, and each of them about 100 to 200 units only, so that we can test the proof of concept, and we're gonna see whether the market like what we're offering them, and how we can increase the value of it is by improving the offer. Let's say, for example, if I'm selling a cup, right? If anyone's selling a cup, I'm gonna make sure I'm selling a cup with a straw, with a pad underneath, and with, let's say, a spoon extra. I'm always asking myself, how can I be 3 to 5 steps ahead of my competition? That was what taught in the book. There was many concepts that was taught in like Art of War by Sun Tzu. So
Right.
for me, I use a lot of like philosophy and strategy from different like war strategist books, because business is war, and you have to find an edge for yourself. And you always have to be 3 to 5 steps ahead of your competition. And you don't have to recreate the wheel. You just have to copy what are best on the market and do it better. That's why we host workshop every week, free workshop for people who want to learn about Amazon, so that they can learn from my perspective, because it's about 2 hour workshop, but I'm breaking it down on how I differentiate my product with the RSR method and do it better than the competition. And by the time you already differentiate yourself, let's say, for example, right now, people that listen to your podcast, right? What are the things that set you apart from other podcasters that make people continuously tuning in? Because that what going to help you to build a raving audience. And eventually, when you have that raving audience, it would allow you to see what else can you help them besides just listening to this podcast. Would there be any other program out there that you can put together to help them level up? Any connection, any affiliate program that you can share with them? So same on Amazon. Differentiate yourself by do it better using the RSR method. That is about 2 hour workshop, but I do everyone that tuning in, I would love to invite them to join our 2 hour free workshop where I break down the step-by-step method on how me and over 100 of people that I help personally make more than $10,000 per month from home with Amazon. And that's already showing you how much I make on my phone. And you can see that too, right?
Right.
That is the same method. And that it's going to take you 2 hours more. And I don't want to bring it on here too long, but do it better.
Sure.
And it's bring it down to like marketing. How can we market the product right? Reach the right target audience? And how can we accumulate as much review as possible so that we can lift the rest of the competition in the dust? Because after you test proof of concept, right? So now the game is about speeding. How can you get in front of how can you get ahead of your competition? And how to on Amazon is by getting as much review as possible. Because for you to have 10,000 reviews, to compete with a guy who have only 10 reviews, you already outweigh him already. And whatever that you build is have enterprise values. You can go on Empire Flipper and you can sell your company as long as fulfill 2 years old, have few product, positive cash flow. You can sell it for 30 to 50x. The company that I show you that do about $1 million a year, I can list that company up for sale for at least $1 million minimum.
So what is the time frame that it usually takes you to build, like from, let's say somebody did start with $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 to buy a few products, test the proof of concept. How long until they're getting a full ROI on their money and they are like in the positive and then on a consistent basis making money?
Yeah. So one of the things that we always teach our student inside of our mentorship program is we are looking for products that are deemed as essential, something that people have to use on a daily, and it have to be recession proof. A good example, it could be things that you can use on your kitchen on a daily, things that you have to use on the kitchen in the daily, because the goal is you want to build consistent cash flow throughout the entire year for you as a seller. And for me, if you saw my charts that I show you, I consistently making money 12 months out of the year. Even holiday season, I still making money. So it has to be recession proof. It has to be deemed as essential. And the cost for the product has to be above $45 or more, because that would allow you to have a healthy profit margin to spend on marketing, to spend on digital marketing like Amazon advertising, which is PPC, and also to spend on influencer marketing. And that what set us apart from other people, because we are using word of mouth. We pay influencer to talk about our product, and they already build enough trust with the audience. And now they just bring another unit of people who they have built the audience to go to my Amazon and make a purchase. And for Amazon, when they see that, oh wow, they're gonna boost my listing even up because I bring outside traffic to Amazon. So that's what majorly set us apart. And for many of our students, they can see result within the first month of selling on Amazon, the second month of selling on Amazon. And usually many of our students get their return on investment after they launch. So the process of launching is first you need to find product. It's going to take you 1 month. Product developments is going to be another month. Finding the manufacturers and producing the product is going to be another month. And shipping the product to Amazon is going to be another month, because you want to ship by sea shipping so that it's going to be cheap, let's say $1 or less. And then when you launch, it's going to be on the fifth. Many of our students launch on the 5th month, and they start seeing profit on either 6th or the 7th month. And many of them get the return on investment after the second batch of product back and profit.
After the second, like basically after month 7, they would start seeing profit and return on investment at that point?
Yeah, about 6 to 7 months. And why? Because we are building a brand. Nobody know who we are, so we have to willing to give more for the customer, where we eat less profit. And number 2, we have the advertising for more customer, because the more sales that you make on Amazon, the more. So there's what we call it organic ranking, which is the relationship with Amazon. Amazon, they have a grading system to grade you. Let's say if you are number 1 in that organic ranking, Amazon gonna show your product to more people without you have to spend any single dime on marketing. We call it organic ranking, reputation with Amazon. Just like, because Amazon, every sales that you make, they earn 15% out of it. So they do want you to make sales. But at the same time, Amazon have to fulfill their duty with their customer by giving them the best product. So it makes sense for Amazon to be the middleman, give the best product from you, and show it to as much of their customer as possible, because your product is good. And Amazon, they're just going to show it to everywhere through their organic ranking system, so that every time that you make a sales, you spend $0 on advertising. That's the beautiful about Amazon, is the coexisting system out there. And all you got to do is focus on the good quality products and make sure that you get customer feedback, good reviews on Amazon. And that's how you build long-term wealth. Because there's many brand. One of the brand that I sold, it was like only 2 years, and some brand that I even own for 5 years. Well, and this is going to be a consistent cash flow, because you are not fighting the battle yourself. You stand on this giant shoulder, which is Amazon, for your growth, and you're dealing your card very strategically. You don't pick seasonal product, you pick throughout the year product. And you don't recreate a wheel, you pick what already working on the market. I usually pick the best seller because it shows the demand already. And I got to do is just break in the market, fill in a small gap. Only 1% of the market is enough for me to make way more than my 9-to-5 job.
So when you are picking something that's already ranked at the top, it's already like the number 1 product out there in whatever category. Mm-hmm. How many sellers typically are there marketing one single product? Like, let's say like silverware, forks, knives, spoons, whatever. Let's say that's your product that you're selling. Are there a lot of different providers for that? Or is it like, there's probably really only 10 stores on Amazon that are actually selling this, because it's, like, how many stores are there typically that are marketing the top product?
Yeah. So for us, we don't recommend our student to go into like heavy, especially for you as a beginner. Many of our students are 9-to-5 parents, work from home, business professional, and even master student and like university students, where they have no background in business. So we always recommend them to find a niche that proven. Let's say, for example, you have silverware, right? Like fork, knife. But then there are niches like for kids. There are niches for, let's say, people who like to travel, people who like to work out in the gym, like their lunchbox and stuff like that. We call them different niches within the same big branch of kitchen. Okay. So you just have to find a small niche of people that you can serve. Let's say you're gonna selling, let's say, lunchbox with silverware for people who like to go to the gym, where it's automatically heat up the food when all they got to do is just plug in while they go to the gym. So that small niche would allow you to not have to compete in a bigger range, where you have to just focus on the small game first. Learn the game, learn how to swing your store, learn how to make money first, because if you can make $1,000 online, what keep you away from making $10,000, $20,000? Just like driving a car. If you never get to drive 10 miles per hour, how can you go to 100 miles per hour? Yeah. And that's why you need a mentor.
And I think that's why the mentorship is so crucial, because like I'm an expert in what I'm an expert in, and other people are experts in what they're an expert in. And if you're finding somebody who's going to help you with building an online store of any type, or a brand or anything, you need somebody who's an expert of seeing what is the niche. What's the thing that really hasn't been fulfilled that we could go fulfill on? Because and that might be 99% of the game. The rest of it is repeatable processes. That's just like step by step, do this, find a manufacturer, find shipping. Like those are repeatable things, and probably things that could be reused across. Like you just find Evergreen Shipping, and Evergreen Shipping ships it, and this is the cost, right? It's not super crucial. You need somebody to ship it, but you don't care who. but finding what the product is, product discovery, that's got to be like the most important aspect of what you do in your mentorship, is teaching either or doing that for somebody, or teaching somebody how to recognize that. Like, what are the steps and the concepts to teach that? In real estate, they teach it in like if you're looking for what's it called? Something type of financing. I forget what it's called. Special financing, basically, where you have other people are selling their home, but they don't want to change the interest rate, so they just sign the loan over. Creative financing, that's what it is. Like, learning how to find a deal that can actually make out and work is 90% of the real estate game. Once you find the deal, the rest is just like, okay, yeah, you need to rehab the house, or you need to rent it out, or whatever. But finding the right demographic is the right person to get the house from. And so that's the same thing with this. It sounds like finding the right product to market is 99% of the game. The other 1%, it's important. Without the other 1%, you're not going to be successful either. But understanding that product acquisition or discovery is so valuable. So if somebody wanted to, one, be part of this 2-hour webinar that you do, or just maybe reach out to you for coaching, mentorship, maybe they're intrigued, they just want to see if they're a good fit to have an Amazon store or brand, where would they go to interact with you?
Yeah, so they can sign up for my mentorship. So right now they can visit my Instagram at Justin the Huncho, like Justin, like for Justin Bieber, and the THEHUNCHO for Huncho, just like the rapper. That's how I came up with my name. Because
I like it.
Yeah. So they can go there because I do a lot of tutorial, share about Amazon, share about my life, share about my testimony of how God saved my life. And now my main goal is I want to be the light in darkness right now, because there's so many gurus out there who don't have nothing and still want to teach. For me, I document my entire journey on my Instagram. In my highlight, you can see story from 6 years ago, 7 years ago, that I documented myself. So anyone that are tuning in that are your followers, they can go to my Instagram and follow me on there, because there's going to be a link to sign up for my workshop. And if they want to work with me one-on-one, this month we already completely sold out on our mentorship, because we only take a handful of people and we prioritize quality over quantity, because we always see in the long term. Because I have to have student success. And right now we have the highest success student rate in the industry, because we have a ton of coaches on our team, including myself, teaching the student. So people can visit everyone tuning in can visit my Instagram for more information. And feel free to reach out to me if they want to apply for the next month waitlist for my mentorship. And they're going to be in interviews, and they can also qualify for some scholarship as well. I structure it as a Harvard of Amazon.
I love it. I think that's awesome. And go follow him on Instagram. The links are going to be in the show notes there. So if that's something you're interested in or just want to learn more about, I'm not at all saying it works. I just met Justin, but Justin, you can, if you're watching the replay of this, you can see on his phone. He's not making it up. You can see the numbers right there on his phone. But more importantly, like, go find out if it's the right fit for you. I think that there's kind of like one of the things you said earlier was he tried a lot of things, and sometimes even if you can make money at it, you can make money dealing drugs. If it's not the right thing for you, and it might not even be immoral or wrong to make money, but if you don't feel right about making money that way, then don't do it, right? So it's not right for everybody to be having the lifestyle that Justin has or doing what Justin is doing. And there's plenty of need for other people in other industries in America. So this isn't for everybody, but if you feel like, you know what, I want that lifestyle, I want those dreams, and I want to have less stress regarding this, then it doesn't hurt to have a conversation. Go check it out. It's free 2-hour thing and learn what you can learn. And then if you think, you know what, this might make sense to dig deeper, then dig deeper. Neither of us are recommending that you do it, other than that you go and find out more information. And that's why you have an interview process, I'm sure. Because how often do you interview somebody and then say, yeah, just like, it's not the right timing for you to make this decision?
Yeah. So we have about 80% application denied, because first we always want to make sure that people work on themselves first by going to the gym, because in our private community, we are built on 4 pillars. Number 1, faith. Number 2, family. Number 3, fitness. And number 4, finance. So everything that our students do, they have to work on it. And that's why on my Instagram, I share a lot with people about personal development tips because I want to set them up mentally and through the habit before they start learning about Amazon. Because the worst thing is I don't want to be in the same position, misleading people, putting people in the wrong place because I was scammed by the other guru before. That's why I share with you, one good teacher can change your life and so does a bad one because someone in the past ruined over 6 months of my life and tens of thousands of dollars. And right now, that's why I wanted to be in this game because I want to do the right thing and set an example. And I want to do this for the younger self of me as well. And one thing about private label, you are building a product that helps solving people's life in masses. The product that I sell is solve people daily problem on a daily. So that's what legacy is for. Because my mentor Charlie, he sold his company for his company was doing about $60 million, and he sold the company, and his ring is called Ringke, Ringke. It's an iPhone. It's the very first company that sell iPhone cases in America, and he built it in 2008. It still exists. That is a legacy that his children can still live on and say, "Wow, that's the company that my dad built from the beginning." Mm-hmm. And imagine when you go in life and you see people using your product, it helps you make money, and at the same time, you help them solve their life problem. You feel proud, and you can pass on that legacy for your children. Because this skill, Amazon not going to go anywhere, and you can pass on the skill to your children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's so wonderful and important that he's not accepting everybody into this. He's accepting the people who want to become this type of person, not just have what he has, but become the type of person who has what he has. And that's so crucial because it's part of the talents, right? Just because you give somebody 5 talents, the person with 5 talents could have squandered them just the same as the person with 1 talent. But they chose not to. They chose to go double it and become somebody who could double it. That's hard. Becoming somebody new who can double what you've received, that's not an easy thing. It doesn't matter if you're doubling 1 to 1 or 10 to 20 or $1 million to $2 million. Doubling you as a human being means growth, and not everybody's up for that growth. And so that has to be the first filter is, are you up for the growth? Yes, the money is that I could help anybody make money, but because money amplifies who you are already, we don't necessarily, I help people make money too. I don't want to amplify somebody who's not a good person. I've got no interest in it. I'd rather you stay poor personally. Like if you're not a good person, let's work on you becoming a good person, and then we'll teach you the money game rather than the other way around. So Justin, we're out of time here. I'm so grateful for you taking the time on your Valentine's Day. We're recording this on Valentine's Day. I appreciate you taking the time to share this wisdom with us and share this knowledge and give the audience of the Fuel Your Legacy show an opportunity to just expand their horizons and become better human beings and more committed to God. I'm grateful for you sharing your faith and not being ashamed of that, but recognizing that you're saved by God and that He's able to be an instrument in your life. That's really admirable, and I appreciate that. Any final words from you?
My final word would be first, it's going to be Happy Valentine to anyone that's tuning in, and Happy Valentine to you, Sam. Because I know in this world nowadays, a lot of people are lonely, but I just want to share that you are not lonely. You have family. If you don't have family, you have God still, and you have Sam and us. We're taking the time out of today just to film this episode because we care. We simply care for you, and we want you to become the best version of yourself. And it will take time. You're going to go through some life turbulence, but remember, whatever worth it will take time. Even heaven requires death, requires sacrifice for you to become the next level. So thank you, Sam, again, for the legacy show that you are making right now. I promise you that your children, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, even 30 years from now, your grandkids going to watching this, and they're going to see how great of you are. Because even if my first time, but I know that how wholehearted and how invested you are to not only help your children, but also the people tuning in. So you're a great example. You lead by example. And for me, I'm proud of you too.
Hey, well, thank you. I appreciate that. And again, click in the show notes. You have his Instagram there. You have all of his links to get to know more about him, follow him. And then also, if you are interested in becoming a guest yourself on the Fuel Your Legacy show, you can go to thefuelyourlegacyshow.com, or you can click the link below as well to jump in there. Again, I'm your host, Sam Knickerbocker, and we'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy show.
Peace. God bless.
Okay, so